The documentary Retrograde chronicles the final 9 months of America's 20-year war in Afghanistan from multiple perspectives. The film capturing the chaos and the complexity from rarely seen operational control rooms to the front lines of battle to the chaotic Kabul airport during the final U.S. withdrawal. It also paints a vivid portrait of the war's impact on the people of Afghanistan. Let's take a look.
I want to live long enough to see peace in our country. Spend time with my family, grow old in Afghanistan, and ultimately die in Afghanistan.
ABC's Phil Lipof had a chance to sit down with Academy Award-nominated and Emmy Award-winning director Matthew Heineman, the filmmaker behind Retrograde. Here's their conversation.
You come at this from 3 different perspectives, from one of the last U.S. units deployed, from an Afghan general, and from civilians desperately trying to get away from this as it's happening and after it's happening. You could have, in your storytelling, followed just one of them, and it would have been riveting, and you would have been able to tell the story. Why did you choose to follow it from 3 different perspectives?
So the journey of this film actually started several years ago with this sort of somewhat cliched idea of trying to document a deployment from both the soldiers' perspective and their families back home. By the time we actually deployed, it was January 2021, and it became clear that, look, actually maybe we can tell this story about the end of the war in Afghanistan, the longest war in U.S. history, through the prism of this deployment.
The Americans trained me, and after being committed for so many years, I just don't believe that the Americans are going to retrograde and leave the country.
And so we sort of, that was our initial pivot. And then, 3 or so months into filming, President Biden obviously pulled out our troops. Green Berets went home. And it just felt like, we had the beginning of a story, we had the first act of a story, but clearly this story was not over. And so we reached back out to General Sami Sadat, who's in charge of Helmand province in southern Afghanistan. He had been working with the Green Berets. So it was a natural sort of extension of what we had already started. At times it was terrifying, at times it was exhilarating, at times it was sad. I mean, to some degree, the narrative tension of the film is every neon sign, metaphorically, was saying, stop, give up, surrender, this is over. And General Sadat had this unwavering belief in himself and his men that maybe, just maybe, if they held on to Helmand or Lashkar or southern Afghanistan, that the country could hold together.
Talk a little bit about the emotions of these U.S. soldiers as this was happening, because you saw it all.
I mean, I think there's a real motif in the film of holding on faces and letting faces speak more than words can ever speak. Faces never lie. A face, I think, is a window into the soul. And we're in the room, literally, as Biden announces on TV that he's pulling out the troops. And their faces speak more than words could ever speak. And, there's a subsequent scene afterwards as they tell their Afghan counterparts that they're leaving. Many of them had worked for years alongside these Afghans, and they're friends. They shed blood together. They lost friends together. So there's a real sense of abandonment.
How about the civilians? The U.S. soldiers feel one way. What did the Afghan people feel?
So we were prepared to go back to sort of film this final chapter, this final battle with the Taliban. And by the time we got to Dubai, things started to fall quite rapidly. And the door that this opened was sort of widening the aperture of the storytelling to show the civilians that the Green Berets had been fighting for, to show the civilians that General Sadat and his men had been fighting for. We started to film at the gates. We decided to leave the airport, go outside the wire, not knowing whether we'd be able to come back or whether we'd be able to get on a flight. I just felt like it was really important to see both the city under Taliban rule and see these gates and the desperation of the civilians trying to get in and leave.
What was that like to shoot in the middle of what really was chaos? Nobody knew what was going to happen next.
It was some of the hardest, it was definitely the hardest few days of shooting in my career. That scene at the Abbey Gate with thousands of Afghan civilians, American partners, NATO partners, packed like sardines in a 4-foot sewage ditch, desperately trying to flee as these 18-year-old Marines were making these impossible Sophie's Choice decisions on who to let in and who not to let in. These Marines, many of whom weren't even alive when the Twin Towers fell. as the Taliban was watching us at gunpoint 100 yards away, as ISIS was circling around in suicide vests waiting to attack, which happened in that very same spot 12 hours later. It just was surreal.
Where were you when that bomb went off?
We were just leaving when it went off.
Do you know Ian Pannell?
I saw Ian.
You saw Ian there?
Yeah.
These are just devastating, heartbreaking scenes here.
The reporting that he did, seeing those Sophie's Choice decisions, the chaos watching from back here, and not just as a journalist, but watching as an American, was hard to comprehend that something that we've been involved in for 20 years could end like this. I think a lot of people were thinking that. This film, in all my films, really, they're not an attempt to articulate or dissect what went wrong or who's at fault or how we got here or where we're going. It's trying to put a human face to this, headline that we were plastered with. And, I think our world is so divided. We live in these echo chambers. And to me, the value of documentary film is to instigate conversation, is to create dialogue, is to allow people from all different sides of the political spectrum to come and argue and debate and to feel and to care. You talk about being emotional. Is there one image that stands out in your mind? I mean, I think my mind is filled with probably hundreds or thousands of images, many of which I dream about at night. I mean, these films change you, right? These experiences change you. They certainly have changed me. And I suffer from PTSD. I have anxiety and nightmares. It's not something I'm ashamed of. I think it's important to talk about. That's on one hand. On the other hand, I'm extraordinarily privileged. I have a blue passport. I get to come back. I get to sit here and talk in Manhattan in a studio with you, and that's privilege, It seems like we've forgotten about the war in Afghanistan. And yeah, amongst many goals, I hope that Retrograde reignites a conversation around these people that we left behind, this country that we left behind.
Our thanks to Phil and Matthew for that important conversation. Retrograde premieres on National Geographic tomorrow and will be available to stream on Disney Plus and Hulu this weekend.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.